Armand Membou is skyrocketing up draft boards right now. Here's why the Missouri offensive lineman is a surefire top 10 pick in the 2025 NFL Draft. Ryan, there's a lot of steam for Armand Membou to be the first offensive lineman drafted. Do you think it's going to come to fruition?
I actually kind of do, Joe. The closer we get to draft day, I'm buying more and more to Membou being the first offensive lineman off the board. I think it's going to come down to whether you want maybe a little bit more of the floor with a Will Campbell out of LSU, for instance, or you want the exciting ceiling of an Armand Membou. But I'm buying it right now, man. Could be as high as maybe New England at number 4. I'm buying Membou potentially being the first offensive lineman off the board right now.
Let's talk about that upside and the reason why the NFL seems to be obsessed with him at the current moment. He has been a dramatic riser since his NFL Combine testing performance, a 330-pound offensive lineman running in the 4.9s. He had a 34-inch vertical, which I think is the craziest part, and he had 31 reps on the bench. So you see this raw athleticism with his testing numbers, but you also see it on film. This is such an easy, fluid mover in space. I have been unbelievably excited by Membou. Unexpected for me to see him rise as much as he has, but overall just really excited knowing the athletic traits that he brings to the position, either playing inside a guard or playing outside a tackle.
This is one of those players, though, isn't it, that you can't really judge a book by the cover a little bit, right? Because like you see him, right? It's like 6'4", 330. He just looks like a refrigerator, like he's a block. You wouldn't expect him to be the mover that he is, but then you kind of see him work like on outside zone, or you see him working his kick step and his pass protection. Like you see those things where it's asking him to move laterally and to get out of his stance and at a good pace. And he's an athlete, man. And I didn't quite expect him to be a 4.9 athlete like he ran at the combine, but like I expected him to test well overall. But he took testing well into a whole different category. Obviously, what he is one of the most historically high testers that we have ever seen on the offensive line position, which is why people, after having 2 really good years of film at Missouri, specifically in 2024, combined with that athletic testing and that athletic upside, that's what has so many NFL teams, NFL fans, and just general public so excited about what Membou could be on the next level.
Yeah, there's a reason why he's an easy first-round projection, because he checks every single box that we look for in offensive line prospects: the flexibility, the foot speed, the mobility. You just need to hone in on some of his technique. So let's talk a little bit about his weaknesses, because there does need to be some improvement. This is probably going to be a prospect. Membou will be a guy that doesn't hit the ground running in his first year. He might be somebody who takes a couple of years, and then in year 2, year 3, we'll be talking about how Membou in the right situation is incredibly impactful for whatever team he's on. I think the biggest thing for me is just needing more consistency with his pad level and his leg drive as a run blocker. And I think he could truly thrive in those areas if he just was more consistent about driving through defenders with that consistent lower pad level.
I mean, that's number one, ultimately. It's so weird because, again, you look at him and you would just expect him to be this great run blocker and maybe a little bit of a below average pass protector. And it's the complete opposite, in my opinion, right? Like, he is more ready to play in the NFL level as a pass blocker today than he is a run blocker. His biggest pluses in the run game right now are predicated upon movement, right? Like his ability to get on the move, you know, whether it's pin and pull stuff, whether it is outside zone and him really utilizing his lateral mobility to create those angles. Like that's where he excels in the run game. And just a general sense of moving guys off the line of scrimmage and being a bully at the point of attack. Like that's not really Membou's game right now. Like he's not really an aggressor at the point of attack in the run game. And I think that just generally speaking is a step that he needs to take. He has the movement skills. If he can now be a little bit more aggressive as a run blocker, I think that's big overall, Joe. Like in pass protection, I think the footwork's pretty clean. I think his hands can get a little bit outside at times, but like that's very, like you can correct that stuff very easily. I agree with you though. The aggressiveness and the impact as a run blocker consistently, that's the biggest thing that you want to see with Membou moving forward as he progresses into the next stage of his career.
Membou as a recruit was a 4-star listed by 247 Sports. He was the 14th ranked interior offensive lineman, the 6th ranked recruit in the state of Missouri, and he stayed home coming from Lee's Summit North High School to play at the University of Missouri. I feel like he was one of those guys while he was at Missouri the first few years that he was contributing on this team, you didn't really think too much about him. There were other guys that were prioritized as draft prospects on the offensive line. And then eventually this year was where that explosion was, where he was clearly the best amongst a very, very shaky group.
Yeah, I mean, he was good in 2023, but he was awesome, obviously, in 2024, like all-American level. Really interesting background, as you mentioned, with like Lee coming out of Lee Summit. Joe, like, stays at home, but he was considered a 4-star on the 247 ranking, but on the 247 composite ranking, he was only considered a 3-star and in the 500s as a recruit. So that means that other platforms, just generally speaking, had him a little bit lower, maybe comparatively, than what 247 Sports had. So he was considered a 3-star by every outlet outside of 247 Sports. They're the only one that had him as a 4-star. And even then, he was kind of a lower ranked 4-star. So he wasn't a massive recruit. And when you look at his offer list, it isn't crazy either, considering the natural talent that he has. He had Oregon, but like outside of Oregon, Nebraska, Iowa State, Iowa, Kansas State, Arkansas, Missouri, not a bad offer list necessarily, but those are a little more of like the Midwest schools that try to find value at different spots, right? Like they're in Iowa and Iowa State, for instance, are schools that routinely find these underranked 3-star recruits and build them up into really good football players. That was more of the offer list that he had. He wasn't dealing with the offers from, the Ohio States, the Michigans, the Alabamas, the Georgias. Like that wasn't his offer opportunities on the next level. He more had to go to the developmental route. And I think you see that he was probably a little bit raw potentially coming out of high school based upon his not only recruiting ranking, but the offer list he also had.
Our NFL comparison for him is pretty lofty, but it was really hard to come up with a guy that fit a similar physical profile as him because, again, 330 pounds and ran in the 4.9s. Jason Peters, who was actually originally a tight end coming out of Arkansas, and he ends up playing offensive tackle, left tackle for the Philadelphia Eagles for a very long time, had a very well-decorated career, was for a period one of the best left tackles in the NFL, and when he tested at his combine, he ran a 4.99. He had 21 reps on the bench. He had a 29-inch vertical, but that comparison comes from the fact that he was a 33-inch arm tackle over 330 pounds. I think that the similar body type and the similar explosiveness is why this comparison works as well as it does.
We can't just mention the Philadelphia Eagles, man. You need to give the Buffalo Bills some love. They were the ones that developed Jason Peters into a great offensive tackle, and then obviously the Philadelphia Eagles reaped the benefits later on in his career. But a great tackle who was incredibly athletic. It's an imperfect comparison because, I mean, Jason Peters was only a left tackle for the most part in his NFL career. We're talking about a kid that has played just mainly right tackle for Missouri. So is he a young man? Because we talked about this before too, Joe. If the New England Patriots, in theory, take him, right, playing him at left tackle more than likely, right? So he has the athleticism. He has the traits to potentially play either side, but he's a guy that, athletically speaking, body type wise, there are a lot of parallels to a guy like a Jason Peters, a really massive offensive tackle, a little bit of a stockier frame that you wouldn't expect to be quite as athletic as he is.
Folks, let us know in the comments below. Do you agree or disagree with our projection here on Armand Membou? And what team do you want to see him play for? Hit that like button and subscribe. We'll talk to you later.